Hi, and welcome to this week's episode, which is going to be a little bit shorter because basically all we did last week was to try and get this room that I'm in into a state where we can use it as a workshop. It was a lot of work that you will see. I will also shortly talk about how the first week of school went, and we're going to look at some footage of a museum that we went to get some inspiration on what to do with our very dark ceilings. And yeah, that's gonna be all for this week. I hope you enjoy. So I don't know if you remember this room. It has a very high ceiling. It sits lower than the rest of the house, and it's fairly large. And I've been cutting some wood here. It has this large opening to the garden, and it's a space that we're not gonna renovate or put in its final state until probably after this year. So we decided that we'll leave this for later to decide what exactly we're gonna do here. That makes it a very good spot to put the workshop for this year while we're renovating the rest of the house. There's one little problem, that is that this floor is extremely uneven. So up here where I'm standing now, the floor is 40 centimeters higher than down there. I'll put on a laser and then you can see what I mean. Yeah, so maybe you can see it, that this is where the floor would be if we would just continue it from the highest point. So the plan is in the next week, when our workaways are here, to empty this room, take down this wine cellar, and then just to make a very simple wooden floor, maybe with some terrace wood or some wood that we can use for something else later when we finally renovate this room. But just to have a stable floor and something we can work on when we use it as a workshop. First, we had to empty the room. The former owners had left us some wood, and I had cut some firewood here over Easter, which was still laying around. When the room was empty, it already looked much better. Then it was time to take apart the wine cellar. But before we do that, let's have a look at it. It has relatively thin walls that are insulated both from the inside and outside. And they built a kind of cooling system out of a fridge and a fan, it seems. Taking down the little room was fairly straightforward. We will keep the insulation material. Maybe we can use it for something later. And we tried to keep the stones intact to use them for the under construction of the floor, as you will see shortly. The next big task was to get the floor level. It was really nice that we had our 3 young volunteers here for that, who shoveled out most of the ground. We tried sorting the material so that we had bigger stones we could use for a little path we made outside, and then could dispose of the soil in the garden. While our workaways did most of the hard work with the ground, I went on a nice little trip to 2 timber merchants who sell locally grown pine wood. In one place they had some second choice terrace wood for a really good price, which was perfect for our need. Unfortunately, the planks were 4 meters, which is a bit much for the car, so they cut them in half and then they fit in the trailer and the car. I then went to the hardware store in Bayonne to get some screws and some wood for the subconstruction. And with all of this material, we could start making the floor. So the floor of this room is now almost level. We've cleaned everything, well, our workaways did. And we will have this edge. So that's one thing we have to do, is to get this edge stable. And I'm just gonna use some wood and make some preliminary poles that go into the ground, and then we'll stabilize this and make use of this concrete slab that sits here. And the concrete slab is also gonna be our reference because nothing is square or even straight here. So what we're gonna do right now is we're gonna use this slab and then make a line that goes across the room. And then by using some geometry and some measurements so that this is a 90-degree angle, this corner. And then we're gonna start from there. Once the first beam was level and in the right place, it was pretty straightforward, laying out the beams and adjusting them in height. Normally a lot more goes into a proper terrace construction, but since we don't have to deal with rain, we could leave out all the measures you would normally take to protect the wood from rotting. In the part that we left a bit higher due to the concrete foundation of the wine cellar, we did the same and added a step later. Because we could use the stones from the wine cellar and got a good deal on the wood, the overall cost to get this room ready to be a workshop was only about 500 euros in material. So a huge thanks to our workaways who decided they did not want to be named or introduced in the video. Today we're in a museum, Musée de Chalosse. It's near Dax. We're especially keen to find is walls, interior walls, and colors for our ceiling. So here it's almost a gray. It's not white, it's more gray with a little bit of blue in it. In the museum there are two different houses. One was from the landlords, the other from normal farmers. In the farmer's house, the ceilings were this grey, bluish kind of white. In the landlord's house, there were all kinds of combinations. In the next week, we will be testing different colors in our house and make a decision. As for the walls, interior walls were normally done with straw and clay, which isn't a very suitable option for us. But we found at least one wooden wall, and maybe we do our interior walls similarly. The museum really made us question if we should leave any beams in the brown they are right now. Our stays in the hallway might look so much friendlier, for example, if we would paint them like they were in the museum. We will be thinking about that as well. I'm just in front of the school, and today is actually the first day in a week where we have sun and beautiful weather. So I thought I'd take the opportunity to talk a little bit about how school was in the first week for the kids. And I think there's two basic parts to it. One is the organizational part and the other is the emotional. Organizational wise, it can be pretty tough to get 4 kids to 3 different schools that start at 3 different times in the morning and end at the 3 different times in the afternoon. But after 2 days where we drove them by car, we figured out when to take the bus from where, and what's going on now is that in the morning overall, now we come to the emotional part. It's working out quite well, I think. The older ones are very interested immersed in this different culture. They think a lot of things are funny. Everybody is very, very friendly. The teachers are very friendly, very interested. The kids are very interested to hear why they are here in France and what they're doing. And it's probably hardest, of course, for our youngest daughter, because she speaks no French at all. And so she gets talked to, but can't really answer. And that's, of course, hard. I have to say, for me personally, it was very, very emotional the first days. This feeling of giving your kids into an institution that you don't know anything about. It's like, yeah, this letting go, letting them experience the world without me can be quite tough, I think. And also just knowing that it can be very tough to be in a different country and not understanding everything and not really knowing what's going on. The really nice thing about this year is that we know that things will get easier and easier and easier with them getting to know French better and better and better. And I think that's a really calming thought. And so now I'm gonna pick up my youngest daughter. I'm on the bicycle, and here in town there's a very little shop, but it sells basically everything, so she can get some sweets there before going home. So that's always a really nice way of her ending the school day and us meeting back after a long day. And with that, I'm gonna end this episode. Hopefully see you next week, when we're gonna continue with the work in the workshop and start painting in the other room.